Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cy Huffer and Friends. This is a podcast that's designed to make you flourish at life and relationships. I'm your host, Cy Huffer, the lead pastor of the Gathering Christian Church in Naples, Florida. And if you followed along with us at all at Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, you would know that each month that we focus on different topics from my friends from around the country and the world, because I believe that I have the best friends in the whole world and that make me flourish at life and relationships, and that when I share them with you, they'll help you flourish as well. And so, as always, follow along Apple, Spotify, YouTube. That's where we live. Today, I am super excited. I get to hang out with some of my favorite Joplin people of all time. And this is Lesli and Titus Neuenschwander. And so, Lesli and Titus, I want you all, please tell us about your family, your story in ministry, and what you do for a living, particularly. And it's really cool, this journey that's led you to really becoming trained in a lot of different certifications and education when it comes to parenting.
Thanks, Cy. It's good to be here.
Go ahead.
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. We are, oh my goodness. So we actually celebrated 31 years of marriage yesterday.
Oh,
So
wow.
our journey began
Congrats.
31 years ago, a little bit before that as we were dating. But, and our family started growing a couple years into our marriage. We are a family woven together through adoption. So we have a large family, 7 kiddos that have the Neuenschwander name, several others that have come in and out over the years. We now have 3 daughter-in-laws and 3 grandbabies. And so my mom is with us in our home as well. So we were kind of doing the math, and we have about 15 in our immediate family that we're, just interacting with and loving and caring for well. Most of them are young adults at this point. Matter of fact, our youngest, Emma, she is getting ready to graduate next month.
Oh
and so
my gosh.
this parenting journey that we've been walking is getting ready to, that side of it is coming to a close. We've been living the other side of young adult and adult life for quite some time, but this new season of everyone being in that young adult role is fastly approaching. So,
Wow.
anything you want to say about that part?
No, I think our family, the way God brought our family together was just the whole process was about learning and growing. And we walk beside parents and marriages now because we realized that, man, we did a lot of things wrong. And yet God's grace is really big. And he allowed parts of our family to turn around and allow us to make a difference in the lives of our kids, even when we kind of switched in midstream in those areas.
Yeah. It's interesting because I would comment about doing things wrong. And Titus, you were always one to say, wait a minute, we did a lot of things right. And we did a lot of things that caused harm in our family. So it's important he was very good to remind me that we didn't mess up everything. We did do a lot of really good things.
Yeah.
And there were things, very important things in regards to relationship and connection and how the brain is wired and the importance of walking beside and discipling versus just expecting obedience and regulation and all the things, the reactivity that is kind of woven inside of us based on our core beliefs and life experience. And so there were some things that we did that did cause a lot of harm unintentionally to ourselves and our children that got us in a place where what we wanted for our family was not what we saw in our family, meaning the connection and the relationship that we wanted, the fun and the respect and the obedience and all the things that we are trying desperately to, the peace that families often want in our home, were not present. And there were several seasons we really struggled, especially as our kids got into the middle school ages and those high school ages. And so pretty much based out of pure desperation.
Yeah.
There were some events in our home that led us to have to make some drastic differences and changes. So we did a lot of searching. We invited families to go to dinner. We read a lot of books. The Strong-Willed Child, we read multiple times. And what we were finding is that though we were receiving support from families and support from people, no one really was able to offer us, we got the support that we needed in regards to being present with us and walking beside us. But we didn't have a lot of, everything that we were doing was actually increasing the stress in our home and making things even more difficult. And it wasn't done intentionally. It was just what was being told to us was not working. And so I remember going in, our kind of a pivotal piece of our story as we went into a counselor's office, our friend Marion Conover, who's no longer here, but he was a pivotal piece in shifting. And we went into that office and we told him everything that was going on. Just kind of a keynote, our oldest 5 are within 5 years of each other. So every age stage we kind of lived in full. So we had a lot of kiddos in the same age bracket at that time doing a lot of similar things. And he said, you're doing everything that I would recommend. And he's a seasoned counselor at this point. And I thought, okay, well, great, we're not crazy. But then the other part of that was, well, what are we supposed to do now then if nothing's working? And he said, I want you to go home and we're going to spend 2 weeks. I'm going to pray. And I want you to look at every behavior in your home and ask yourself the question, what if it's not behavior? We walked out of that counseling office convinced it's behavior, knowing that it's obstinance, defiance, and that our job as a parent is to break this defiant spirit in our kid if we're going to love them well, right? That was the mindset.
And I left the office mad.
Yeah, that is true. Well, thanks for that, right?
If it's not behavior, I'm like, okay, well, what in the world else could it be?
And we are where we are right now because we were desperate enough to ask that question.
Wow.
And so as a result of asking that question, it's interesting because what we were seeing was behavior, but how we viewed behavior made all the difference. We looked at it as fear-based. We looked at it as obstinance and defiance. And when I was able to step back and look at what was happening outside of my reactivity and my attempts to fix, control, and suppress everything that was going on in my home out of fear, my own fear, I was able to see for the first time. Matter of fact, I describe it kind of as scales coming off my eyes and light bulbs coming on, because for the first time I saw kids that were trying to communicate and didn't have the skill set to do it well. So they were pushing forward and getting reactive and trying to get in everybody's face. I saw kiddos who had ideas and thoughts and got excited about things, but their way of being excited caused harm to the people around them because they wanted their attention. I saw kids who were scared and kids that had needs. And so they were doing anything they could to meet their needs. And we were getting in the way of that. So of course they're going to stand strong to their, to the belief system that they had and the desire that they wanted. Those needs took precedence over ours. And so as we just kind of fast forward, as we're doing different things, literally listening to the Spirit say, this isn't working, flip the script. And we just kept working every day at flipping the script. Nothing got great. We were still really struggling, but we became more aware. And we were watching more and we were paying attention more and we were softening and slowing down and noticing and being more curious. And so over a gradual process, God continued to bring certain information, specifically Brian Post from Fear to Love was kind of a huge, another pivotal piece to us. We went to a conference, went to an intensive, and for the first time we were around people who were understanding of challenging behaviors. We didn't feel so alone in the big mess that we felt like we were living in our house. And it kind of just spiraled from there in regards to our passion for caring and loving our kids and then offering that hope to families.
And real quick, I just want to pull out a part of your story too. And it's just so beautiful. I think I was actually just talking to somebody today. And one of the things she said was, I just feel like I'm a bad mom.
Oh, I'd love to speak into that for a second.
I know. And it was, and it's so helpful because what you're sharing is the vulnerability that you're bringing to your story is that this journey of where we're at today came from things not going well. Just because you are followers of Jesus and Titus, you were pastor at the church, and Leslie, you were like leading and teaching at a Christian school. And even though like you're doing that at home, like that doesn't mean that parenting is easy or perfect and things go well. And it was out of like struggle and pain and heartache that led for you to discover, what do we do? Like, how do we do this better? How do we do this right? And so I just want to encourage people, like, Parenting's hard. It's
Yeah.
really tough. And there's going to be times where you feel like you're not doing it well.
Yeah.
And
And the
yet,
shift really comes in being faithful, and the focus being a faithful mom or dad, rather than trying to be a good or bad. I mean,
that's
like,
so good.
we know none of us want to be a bad parent.
Yeah.
But if our focus is on just being a good parent, we're going to fail at that, because we're all struggling. We're all have our own things that we need to work on and work through. And it's not just about our kids. We found out that it's really more about us and our regulatory systems, because we can't lead our children to obedience. We can't lead our children to regulation if we ourselves are actually behaving the exact same way our kids are. And we do that because we regress just like they do when we're under stress. So part of our work has been to practice and put into place skill sets for regulation, so that we can kind of invite them into our calm rather than join them in their chaos. So so faithfulness is the focus versus just trying to be good.
Good or bad. I love that.
And so just even part of our journey, what we do now, I was a youth pastor for almost 20 years, a family pastor for about 7 years. And we just kept finding ourselves walking beside families who are struggling. And that caught our heart, because we were a family that struggled. And, I was a youth pastor and leading youth. And you know what? I didn't know how to lead my own son, who was in our youth ministry. And I'm not an angry person, but I found myself being really angry because I was desperate. I didn't know how to reach my son's heart. The only way I knew how to do that was tighten the rules, make it more difficult, try to get his attention, everything you can, waving your arms, saying, this is not the right way. And so more than anything, we recognized that while we were tightening the rules, we were losing the relationship. And our greatest influence that we have in our kids' life comes through the relationship. And so we had to do a lot of shifting in that area. So long story short, during our time together, I then switched gears and went back to school. So I am now marriage and family therapist, work part-time at an office, but then we also do some work at our home, which we can talk about later.
Yeah.
And then Leslie's journey.
And that's where I'm an educator at my core. So that's a teacher. That's my passion was working with children and being in the school system. And then of course I did a lot of that. I homeschooled my kiddos. And so I spent a lot of time, the education piece at home. And then I went back when my kids got a little bit older. And so as an educator, whenever we were working towards certifications in trauma, when we were asked to do book studies or things like that, I naturally I wrote curriculum. That was how I did things. And so I began teaching. Like I said, we did some certification with Brian Post and Post Institute, which is now Fear to Love company. But I created an 8-week trauma responsive care parent course. And I started teaching that with a company in California that specifically comes in and wraps around families, adoptive families, specifically ones from the state. So a lot of kiddos were being displaced and having to go into residential treatment. So the state stepped in and said, what if we create these wrap programs where we support families in the home in hopes that they're not they're not disrupted. The adoptions aren't disrupted. So I had the honor and privilege of walking beside families in education. So then fast forward a little bit, we started doing intensive work for them, meaning we go to California about 7-8 times a year. There's anywhere from 3 to 8, 9 family units, just parents, not kids. And it can be singles or 2-parent families. And we work with them in a therapeutic environment, a lot of emotional and educational care during a 2.5-day period of time. And we not only walk with them, but we actually cook for them and feed them and stay with them and are present with them, which led to this passion of bringing families into our home. We would meet families places, but we just had this strong desire to bring him into our home, which is another kind of part of our story. But to wrap mine up, I still work for that company. I do the education and I do a lot of family support. So a lot of these families are in crisis, a lot of difficult behaviors, risk of disruption in the home. And so I do a lot of that work, specializing in trauma, specializing in restoring family relationships, where Titus does a lot of the marriage and family work and specializes in restoration of marriages. Then Titus joins me in California and we go together to offer the parent intensives there. So that's kind of my part of this.
A lot of the hard work that we do, if you consider it more like an emergency room for family health. So when we meet with families in that setting, it means that they are really being pulled apart. And so, Sai, honestly, that we can be a part of the podcast and speak with parents at the beginning. And to make some changes that we learned in being able to walk beside families is just a great opportunity and honor. And
we love when we can meet families before they're in crisis to help make, because that would be the preference, right? Is that we can make some shifts and changes before we actually hit crisis mode. So
I guess, two conversations I'd want to have today then. So like, as I'm hearing you all talk, like one of them is like, okay, so if you imagine like, families in crisis is like this really, really fast moving river, right? Like, it seems like most of your work is downstream, helping families get out of the river. Is that accurate? That's kind of the, like you said, the emergency room work that you're doing. But
I would say that's what we specialize in.
That's what you specialize in. Okay.
Yeah, that's not all the work we do, but that would be a specialty area for us. Yes.
And so I think for families who are in crisis, we will talk a little bit later about if you are in crisis and if you're in that river and you're flying and you don't know how to get out.
Yeah, let's get you out of there.
Then Titus and Lesli and the Restoration House ministry can help you get out, can help be that emergency room for your family. What we're going to do for the next few minutes is we're going to go upstream. And we're going to say, hey, let's do some preventative work. How can we prevent families from getting into that crisis? And so that's what I want to spend the next, 20 minutes or so. And then I want to end by talking about the families that are there, what they need to do. So I just, you all just heard all of these credentials. These people know what they're talking about. So I just want to, from experience, from failure, from success, from education, from scripture, from science, from psychology. We're going to have all of these worlds merging today. Okay. And so I just want you to know that this can be messy and fun and exciting. And I love it. So one of these questions I have here is I'm just going to ask this. What is parenting? Like at its heart, bring in science, bring in psychology, bring in the gospel. Like what is a parent's job, role? What's their focus? What is it at base level?
Right. Yeah. You can answer that in a lot of different ways, but I think where I'd like to start is, isn't it awesome that God gave us a blueprint for what relationships can look like? And you have scriptures, and throughout the whole Bible, what you see God is pursuing the heart of his people, going all at it with everything that he has. In himself as a father, you see him coming like, that's not good enough. I'm going to draw near. And so he sends Jesus, says, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like to love each other. And so we watch him and he says, that's not close enough. And so he gives us his spirit and says, man, I want to be so close and so aligned and so intimate in a relationship that I'm going to come and live inside of you. I think what we're really doing is pursuing the relationship. We're pursuing the heart of our kids through relationship. And is there a place for rules? Is there a place for order? Yes. But I think what we're saying is it can't be the first and primary. I don't follow God in a relationship of commandments. That doesn't motivate my heart. I follow God out of his pursuit and love for me, and he displayed that through the gospel, which transformed my heart. And now I follow his commands out of a passion and love. I think as parents, it's so easy to get that turned around, and we look at the behaviors rather than having the curiosity of what's going on in the heart.
Yeah. Most definitely. Sin separates. And God wasn't okay with us being separated from him. So he pursued. And so if you look at that from a parenting role, the discipline word in my mind, I have a lot of shifts with words. So I filter words through whether that's a fear-based word or a love-based word. And even if the word is neutral, we tend to have feelings about words that lead us more towards fear versus love. So, for example, sin separates. And so if we look at discipline, we think of it, or at least from a fear-based lens, it's my job to control, suppress, fix, discipline in order to get our kids to do what we think they ought to do or what they should do. We kind of sugarcoat it, not on purpose. Remember, a lot of this is unconscious. If I had said this to myself 10 or 15 years ago, I may not have listened to me, to be honest. I really may not have, because in my mind, I thought that my job, if I loved my children, was to do, and we could list it off. And that when those things weren't happening, I literally became a person I didn't like because I was so fearful and desperate that if I was doing my job right, my kids would be being the way that I thought they ought to be. So, but when I look at discipline as discipleship in this drawing in and bringing towards, where sin separates, love brings together. And so as parents, if we're finding ourselves diving in with these strong opinions and preferences and ways that we think things have to be in order to, like if we catch ourselves in that mindset of fear, and then it's a reflection of us if they're not doing that, which is all part of the process. Like this is our oldest is 28 years old. So this is a 28, 29 year process of working on my own feelings about how people look at me and feel about me. And it's not even, we still are doing it, but I see discipline as discipleship and guidance and drawing in and working with and leading towards, even if it's uncomfortable for them. Same with kind of the words consequences, right? It's consequences we think of being negative, even though consequences are literally the effect of an action. We tend to lean towards them being as something uncomfortable and something that we have to consequence them so much that they want to obey, where I look at that and I see it as all we're doing is creating fear and disconnect. If we can reframe that word just the slightest bit by saying, what experience, even uncomfortable, does my child need that still keeps us in connection but helps guide them towards the direction that they want? It shifts how I feel about how I interact with my kids. Instead of having to force them, I get to help them. Instead of demanding them, I get to walk with them. And they still are going to be upset. They're still going to be mad. They're still going to be angry. And I'm going to be okay, because inside I know that I've done the very best I can to maintain relationship, not divide. And so I don't know if I got off. Maybe I got off a little bit. I'm not sure. But
No, it's so
the
good.
point is, the shift in our perception of how we're approaching our kids makes a huge difference in how we interact.
I think for me, part of the transformation occurred when I realized that I was parenting in a way that not only didn't reflect the gospel, but it diminished it. And what did that mean? It meant that I would never tell anybody that when they find themselves straying from God or doing something contrary to what he wants, the first thing that God's going to do is he's going to come in and he is really ticked off and he's going to punish you. But when our kids misbehave, the first thing that I would do was go straight at the behavior. Don't do that. That's not what we do. That's not how we act.
If you keep doing that.
If you keep doing that. And really, what am I doing? What I'm saying is I'm communicating an unspoken message that they are only valuable if they're good. How do I go about and work with my kids where they say, you know what? Even on my best days, I'm loved. And on my worst days, my parents still love me. I work with so many adults now who still feel like they have to perform and that their value is only as good as the way in which they were to perform on that day, whether it's in their jobs, whether it's in their relationships. That is anti-gospel.
Hmm.
But that's the way that I was loved. Did I love my kids unconditionally? Yes. Do you know what the problem was? They didn't feel loved in certain areas because love felt conditional.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we step back and start changing the way that we see our kids and the experience they need to experience God's love and our love, it's a different mindset in how we approach it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you
It's
guys
less rigid and more fluid because we meet the immediate needs versus the perception of what we think should happen in that moment. Like we get to see a little bit bigger picture than just that moment of disobedience or that moment of making mistakes or doing something outside of our preferences.
One of the resources you've mentioned several times is From Fear to Love, Brian Post, the Post Institute. Am I getting all that correct?
Yeah, it's Post Institute. It's actually feartolove.com is where those resources are now.
So
yeah.
if you want to dive more into this,
from a trauma lens.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I interrupted you. I apologize.
You're fine. Just go to feartolove.com is all I was going to say.
Yeah. Yeah. There are a lot of gospel-centered resources too, but because our primary focus and the most, not all, but most of the families we work with are on that early childhood trauma, traumatic stress, chronic stress, neurodiversity, challenging behaviors. That book, though, the language is all adoption. We work with a lot of families that are not adoptive families that's been a kind of a foundational baseline of understanding stress and behavior. That we lead people to. If you just need a quick, you can get the download for free on the website, and you can listen to it like in an hour and 45 minutes. It's very down to earth, really easy read.
And we mentioned that because that was our starting
point. There's a lot of resources more now as we've continued on.
There's a lot of good resources out there, and that's good news for us as parents.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure. So.
Yeah, and I think that's where, maybe even just mentioning some at the end too of for people. But I think one of the things I could feel as you're talking is I'm like, okay, I like what you're saying, right?
There it is.
I don't know concretely what that looks like.
Yeah, that's
at dinner.
Love it.
At dinner when my kid, won't eat her broccoli. Like as simple as that. Like, can you give us kind of like a case study or example concretely of like, okay, this is a shift. We used to do this, now we do this.
Leslie is awesome at that. Before she gets going, I'm gonna build a foundation for that.
Great.
In the way that God has created us to interact with one another, the first part is He gave our brain two distinct halves. And yes, they work together. But what we sometimes forget is that we are emotional driven first. A child in his or her first 3 years isn't even using the left side of the brain much at all. That's why temper tantrums. That's why everything is big. But that's also why you see the beauty of them just leaning over and watching a butterfly and being enthralled in it. Like they're taking on the experiences of it. The right side of the brain is not just where emotion lives, but it's where our stories are kept. Isn't it awesome that the Bible is told as a narrative and it just doesn't stop at 10 Commandments, right? There's a whole story. Why? Because that's how we make sense of our lives. And I'm saying this for the reason of informally, I would go straight at the behavior and I would go
broccoli.
Right. And I'd go straight logical, right?
Obey.
Right. You haven't eaten anything. It's time to eat.
I've told you to eat. Right? This is what I asked you to do.
What's on your plate, right? But what did I miss? I missed that my child is upset because they don't like broccoli any more than I like broccoli, right? And instead of meeting, this is going to be a strong word, but instead of meeting them in the emotion of that, I completely skip it and I go logical. And do you know what happens? They can't hear logical. Until they feel heard and understood and met in that place, then it's going to be a big fight. And it doesn't mean you won't have a fight. But man, when I can look at them and say, oh, buddy, I know eating broccoli is so hard, right?
It's the worst.
It's the worst, right? And
here's some cheese to put on it.
Let me take a few pieces off, and you only get this one, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And if a child is eating and it's about whether it's good or not, first of all, I'm not even sure I would make them eat broccoli at this point, right? I'm a grandparent, okay?
Yeah.
So that changes things. Yeah. Do they need nutrition? Yes. I want to be smart in how they do it. But my point is, how you begin the approach is really important. How do you meet them on their level, where they are at that age, and what's taking place in the world? Mm-hmm. Be curious in that, and then start engaging. Yeah. I'm going to let you.
Well, you pretty much just did it.
Oh, well.
It's all good. I love it.
But we were talking about broccoli.
Yeah.
There are lots of different things in
which was incredibly, which is not from my life. This is a hypothetical situation.
Yes. So. Oh, yeah, never. Right. You're right. I can remember Brian talking about families throwing peas, a kiddo throwing peas across the room, and how we'd be able to walk beside him because that's a minor piece to our world. So that's part of this too. I think. Okay, I'm gonna stop for a second and. Okay, so even what I just did is one of the most vital pieces to caring for your kiddos. If we can't stop long enough to take some really good deep breaths, which not only gives life to our body, but gives life to our brain, there's a whole science about that as well. It's also very difficult for us to even though we're going to logic, we're still working out of this fear brain of they need to obey me, they need to do what I want. Mm-hmm. And so I can sit here and give some really quick practical explanations, which I will, just give me a second. But there is, like Titus said, a whole nother baseline of starting points before we ever really address the broccoli. And that's why am I asking them to eat broccoli? I'm not saying they don't need to. I'm just saying why? Well, because it's nutrition. Okay. Why do I think they need to eat it right now when I say because it's in front of them? And some of the answers to that might be because moms spend a lot of time making food, and it's important that when you put something in front of your plate that you eat what you have. Why do they need to do that? Well, I don't know. Some people might not know why they make their kids eat all the food on their plate. That might be something that needs to be explored, right? Why is it so important that they finish everything on their plate? My guess is there's some backstory to that needs to be unfolded. Okay, so get with me and we'll go through some of the backstory. But that motivates us to want them to eat it. Our stories motivate our kids to want to do certain things, even as simple as broccoli on a plate. Other questions might be, what is my main goal for this moment? Is it stress and frustration, or is it community and relationship and connection at the table? Because if I may not be willing to force an issue at that moment, if we are if we're having a safe, connected, fun environment, why would I want to disrupt that by forcing this broccoli situation? Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to build skill. So this is what I would typically tell a family is in the moment, if they don't want to eat the broccoli, first steps, like I just said, I know you don't want to eat broccoli. Tell me why you don't want to eat the broccoli. Like you turn it into conversation. You turn it into no big deal. You could eat it or not, and I don't care, literally. And you have to almost believe that in yourself. Like my main focus here is understanding why this is an issue to start with, not am I going to get them to obey me?
And I think part of the question in that is even the parent processing, am I asking them to eat the broccoli because I want to be a good parent?
Do I want to be a good parent? Do I want to teach them to obey because I've asked them to do it? Or is it really about the nutrition in the broccoli? Right. So that's what I mean by there's some unraveling of things before. And so, but in the moment, you kind of have, if you take in your breaths and you're regulated, you're not in your emotional fear-based brain, then you can decide, is this something I'm going to push forward on? How am I going to push forward on this? Or is this something I really do need to just set down tonight And we can come back to it later and have a conversation about broccoli. Maybe we need to prep them a little bit more. Maybe we need to say, hey, I know you don't like to eat these foods. Let's practice eating something we don't like. Maybe we are going to have them sit at the table, but it's not going to be in this shaming, judging, you're going to sit there till you eat it way. It's going to be in a, I'm going to sit with you and we're going to be together and we're going to get this hard thing done because we can do hard things.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's about bringing together versus separating and disconnecting and creating a lot of shame and guilt. And that's just about broccoli. There's that kind of baseline can apply for
almost
all kinds
everything,
of things.
right?
Yes,
Well, I feel like the two filters I feel like you keep bringing to the front in all of these conversations is the from fear to love, right? Like from separation to connection. Like that, like those are kind of the things. And then the other thing that you had said that I thought was really good earlier that I just blew past. I wanted to stop, but it was also good. But I want to come back to is you invite them into your calm, not you into their chaos. Is that, did I say that right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well said.
Well said. I mean, we have this amazing opportunity if we can become confident in our own ability to remain regulated and clear-minded, right? Even if we don't know how to do something, being able to just say, you know what, I don't know it, but if I don't know, I'm not going to try to fake it. I'm literally going to just set this down until I know what to do next. But if we can be confident parents and regulated parents, we have this beautiful ability to actually, science proves one amygdala can co-regulate and entrain with another. So it's kind of like that when somebody comes in the room and there's the elephant in the room, or you can feel their energy, like those are real things. And even as on a biblical standpoint, when you have believers in the room, the Spirit speaks with it. There's a connection. So it's not just science. It is just science because God created science, right? We talked about that before the podcast. We have a lot of science knowledge, but the more we learn about the brain and science, the more we see the gospel. And why do we see the gospel? Because God is the creator of the science. But so we have this ability side to draw our kids into our calm. And if we join their chaos, all we're doing is escalating the stress and the chaos. But if we can be confident in our role as a parent to be present and to take our time to regulate ourselves, we can de-escalate them and lower their stress, which then can diminish the behaviors that we're seeing. And so
which reminds me of just like the incarnation, basically, right? Like that's what you did, Titus, at the very beginning was God wanted our hearts, so he came to us and dwelled with us to invite us into his calm, into, per se, into his world, where when you go into his world, it makes your world different. So sorry, I interrupted you, Titus, but I love that picture.
I greatly appreciate you highlighting that. I think that's why our work is primarily with parents.
Yeah.
Even when the kids are highly dysregulated. Why? Because the parent is the one who has the greatest influence on their child to make a difference. Love creates the environment of safety. I think it is so powerful when we talk about fear and love. And then John writes, hey, perfect love casts out all fear. Listen, I don't know how many times it's in the Bible. There's some discrepancies among the amount of times because of wordings, but I'm pretty sure that the greatest commandment that God says is don't be afraid. Why? Because fear drives us to places that he says, I've already taken care of that. And when we create that space, when our kids feel that they can be who they need to be, and they don't have to worry about however they perform, whether it's on the sports arena, whether it's in academics, whether it's in a church, whether it's in behavior, that there's still going to be a place that they say, hey, I know my parents didn't do it right all the time, but there was never a moment where I had to wonder if I'm loved. And I think the problem is we are shaped not necessarily by a lecture or it's kind of like, I think of it as when we were growing up, every parent, if they did talk about it, gave a sex talk, right? It was a one moment saying, okay, we got to talk about this,
Here's the
right?
talk. Let's go.
Right. Truth is, we're not impacted by those very often, but we are impacted by the thousands of interactions that we never remember that create our family belief system.
Mm.
Like my parents never once said, hey, meeting at the dinner table is vitally important to us and connection. They didn't give a lecture on it one time and then never did it. It was just a part of what we did and what we end up valuing.
So it became our story. It became our emotional stories.
And that's the part that it does. Those thousands of interactions is really what gives us the blueprint of how the conclusions we feel about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were getting those thousands of interactions off a little bit, our kids were receiving a message not of I'm unconditionally loved, but I'm conditionally loved. And which of those did they feel? We didn't mean to give that message, but they felt conditionally loved.
Wow.
Which really, it's interesting because one of the questions you asked was about the scripture about how we walk and we talk and when we sit and when we lie. Really, that's what this is all about. We live a life that is as best as we can, and mistakes actually are part of life, and so we're going to mess up, we're going to get dysregulated, and we come back and we repair and we connect and we keep moving forward, right? And so but it becomes part of our daily interactions of presence and being available and being with and all of that. I need to do a caveat just for just a second. There is a big strong cultural shift right now with all of this language of peaceful parenting and permissive parenting, and it gets twisted a lot. So it's important to hear me say this. We are not talking about free-for-all parenting in regards to just hands off and our kids rule the household. Okay. We're talking about confident, clear-minded, regulated, gospel-centered, draw in, care for, be with, and we can do all of that while holding some boundaries and setting some limits, and shame and discomfort and conviction are all part of the process. So we're not trying to sugarcoat that, but we also don't want to be the ones that are kind of in this constant state of putting that on our children, which is increasing their stress and creating this sense of disconnection and conditional love. We want to actually cultivate internal feelings of conviction, and rather than us being the one that's giving that we want them to naturally become convicted about what they're doing versus us punishing them into it.
That's interesting that you say that. That reminds me of one of the things that as a pastor you hear a lot is that people say I don't feel fed anymore, so I'm leaving this church, right? And there's a point where I've had this conversation a million times where I'm like, well, how many times, okay, you don't feel fed by me. Well, how often are you reading your Bible yourself? Right. And they're like, well, I don't. I'm like, well, okay. So if a toddler, it makes sense for a parent to feed a toddler their food, but at some point that toddler needs to grow up as a teenager and need to be able to feed themselves. They got to be able to take a fork and knife and cut a steak, right, Titus? I mean, amen, brother. And they need to be able to eat that steak on their own. If a teenager is still getting spoon fed by their parent, that's not a mature person, right? And so I'd always use that example, but it seems like that's the same thing when it comes to what you're saying of conviction for sin.
Yes, and I'm going to take it further. If you're cutting steak and you cut yourself, that's part of learning process. And we're not going to sugarcoat that. We're going to be with them in it. We're going to help them with that. If they eat too much and it makes them have a bellyache because they're learning. Do you see how, there's this process, and I know we're talking about steak and cutting, but you're right. There are things we step back and we let things unfold, and then we're present with them in the midst. We're not trying to keep those natural consequences from being present, but we're going to walk with them in the midst of them at the same time. So
you're really you're developing an adult who knows what conviction is, learns it, and is not having to have the parent be the convicting presence in their life. Ultimately, it's Jesus and the Spirit. that's
Ooh,
what
and that
that's the
leads to the next
discipleship part
one.
that takes connection,
Yeah.
that
Right.
takes so much more than just I'm telling you when you're wrong or when you're right. It's helping equip them to be able to learn that for
Yeah.
themselves.
And
And I think what we're highlighting at the beginning is be present. Meet them in that space. But we're also saying, and do the hard things after it. Like,
to have those
don't
conversations,
just
do the
be there for them,
practice.
but then have the hard conversation when they're able to have the hard conversation, not when they're upset, not when they're throwing a
And their
tantrum,
brain is shut off and they can't hear you anyway.
not when you catch your teenager sneaking in their window at 1 a.m. You know,
That's not the moment.
when the emotion's high. We're saying do the hard things, but do it well at the right time.
At the right time.
Yeah.
Our marriage counselor calls it our amygdala, our lizard brain.
Yeah.
And so she's like, are you guys in lizard brain right now? Like if you are, then we need to regulate, we need to get back into our executive function and everything. And that's so helpful.
I'm so sorry. There is one little more. All of this, we can do all of this, and we still ultimately our children end up making the decisions of what they're going to do. And we see that more as they get older. And so all of this preparation work that we do is so that, because like I said, all of ours are now they're making decisions on their own. And if we hadn't established relationship with them and mended some of the core wounding that we offered to them in those earlier years, even when we were doing good things, we would have nothing. Like one of the saddest situations, I think, that drove us even to where we were before all of this, is we were sitting at a ball game, and this man with 3 adult kids said, I don't have a relationship with any of them. And he told us why. And the reasons were because they couldn't abide by the rules that he had established. They're adults, and he had no. And I remember looking at all my elementary kids, and there was a sadness. There was a deep sadness for this man, and this motivation to do whatever we needed to do to make sure that when our children were making decisions, even if they were struggling, and we have kiddos still struggling because of their primal wounds and their wounding that had nothing to do with us, and even maybe some that did have something to do with us, but our job as a parent isn't determined necessarily by how our children turn out. And I think in the church, that's a big thing too, is if you're faithful followers of Jesus and you lead your children to the Lord, that there's some magic formula that your kids are going to be followers of Jesus. And that is our goal. That is our hope. That is our desire. But that doesn't mean you failed if they didn't. We still have responsibilities, but the pursuit doesn't end until our breath is over. And so our kids we are madly pursuing them with the heart of Jesus, even while they're making some really rough choices and decisions. And
I just got chills all up my whole body when you said we pursue them until there's no breath left in us.
There's hope for different.
That's right.
Yes, absolutely.
And one of the things I do want to just say this, and I know that we're out of time. But that proverb, train your kids in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart, has caused so much damage for the church because so many people take it as a promise that even, I train my kid up and they're away from the Lord, but I'm going to hold on to that promise. When they get older, they're going to come back. And we take Proverbs as these promises that like you can cash that check, take it to the bank. It's going to happen. It's a promise from God. No, a proverb is a general truth. It's generally, this is how the world works, but that's not always the case. And so when you take verses like that and you make them what they're not, what God didn't intend them to be, this is good old fashioned wisdom from a cowboy. That's what Proverbs is. Okay. That's not always the case. Like you said. And
it motivates you to do things out of fear because you're panicking and you're worried and you're afraid. And that's counter.
But the pursuit of it reflects the heart of God.
Correct.
It's that's what is it 1 Thessalonians 2 is my favorite parenting passage. As a nursing mother cares for her kid, as a father pursues his kids, we share the gospel of God with you, not just content, but our lives as well. And that's the heart of what you're talking about. Okay. Can you give, I know we're out of time.
Yeah, that's okay.
2 or 3 resources for prevention. If people want to dig deeper into From Fear to Love is one of them. There's another one or two.
So if you go to our website, we offer free education. So every quarter, there's a free online parent course that is open to anybody.
And
it's
that's
not
our
just
website, feartolove.com.
No. It's
Okay.
it's restorationhousefc.org. So it's our company.
restorationhousefc.org.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
actually our nonprofit. So we have
Okay.
a nonprofit. The goal is for us to, I mean, real quick nutshell, we want to provide therapeutic care for families, for all families, whether they can afford it or not. And so the goal is we have this nonprofit. So if you have a heart for families and you want to support families in, and we've talked a lot about parenting because that's the goal, but marriage is a core piece of what we do as well. So that's a part of this too. But you can, I mean, donations can come in that directly connect to the support of families to receive services. And then also we do intensives in our home. We do family support care in our home. We do marriage and family seminars and workshops outside of our home, retreats and intensives outside of our home. And then, of course, that the education piece is available as well. That's free based off the nonprofit. So,
and so we can even send you a list of
there's book references
we think that are great parent resources that you can share with your congregation and stuff.
That'd be great.
Paul David Tripp Parenting is a core gospel center baseline too.
It's a good foundation.
Good. And then I want to just point out downstream. And if someone is, if you're in a crisis, you know, your family, marriage, kids, like it's a toxic situation, and you feel like you need an emergency room. What would you say would be their next step to get help from you all?
Go to our website.
And it does help. The education, Leslie's class, honestly, is a great place to start. And it's free, so that's a good place. But then also go to the website. You can contact us, and
we'll reach out and we'll start the process of figuring out the best way to support you. We value meeting families where they are. That's the blueprint for our life in every situation. And so where families are, we try to meet them in that space and then develop the trust that's needed for them to do some hard things. So
meaning
don't let the finances deter families from, fear of shame. I can't go stay in somebody else's house. Well, if we're desperate enough, yes, you can, and it'll be okay. We're safe people. We've had over 34 families in our home, and we're okay. We didn't hurt anybody. So
that's right.
So we would love to be able to walk beside families. So,
And I will have I'll post that website link on this episode in the comments section in the description of the episode, so you guys can find it. And I'm on it right now looking, and literally on the front page it says help families find hope and healing. And there's a button that says contact now.
Correct.
And so if you are in crisis, if you are in emergency, you need an emergency room for your family, hit that contact now button and fill it out, and Titus and Leslie will follow up with you. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's correct.
Thank you all so much. Seriously,
thank you.
Your wisdom, your experience, your decades of just learning and growing and being faith. You are some of the people I think of most when I think of people who keep saying yes to Jesus. And you just keep saying yes to Jesus over and over and over again. And he has led you in this wonderful path to be where you're at today in this niche that is, is where you're at because of your journey. And so thank you. I don't know if someone said that to you yet recently, but thank you for saying yes to Jesus over and over and over again. The kingdom is better for it because of you. So love you guys. So great having you here.
Thank you, Sam.
Appreciate
it. Everybody, as always, remember that you are made for more. So don't settle for anything less. Have a great day.
Okay. Thank you.